Play.
Hello guys, welcome to the ATP Weekly, which is going to be like a sped up version. We need to finish in like 50 minutes, which, as we know, with people as talkative as me or Mario, this is pretty hard usually. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll be joining in on my phone, but of course today we're gonna manage this easily. Mario, the Australian Open has just finished. What are your sort of first thoughts regarding the ATP side of the game, of course? And of course, we got a maiden Grand Slam champion, which is always a big opportunity, a big occasion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we haven't missed the drama this Australian Open. Record tying for most for Slam with most five setters in the Open era. With 35 matches going to 5 sets, and yeah, of course, also a big story because we have a new Grand Slam champion, which is not really, surprising considering how in how big form he has been since basically post Wimbledon, even more since post US Open. Yeah, definitely good, very good stuff because beating Djokovic and Medvedev back to back, which were finalists at, for example, the US Open, even, yeah, there have been different circumstances. Djokovic didn't play a great match. Medvedev did for the first 2 sets, especially because he was very, very aggressive. He surprised Sinner, which maybe also, first Grand Slam final, he wasn't really ready to adjust his tactic, right away. But yeah, really, really nice story. The cherry on the cake after a fantastic period, winning a lot of matches against top 5 opponents and a lot of matches in general because he's 27-2 since the post US Open. And backing up the great way to end last year with a Grand Slam title. I don't think that we can really hope for something better. Or really, nice run, nice everything good from from Simna's perspective.
Let's maybe start talking about Sinner indeed, and sort of the way maybe he handled the opportunity, the occasion, the pressure, the expectations. Because well, the first 2 sets weren't that great in this regard, right? I mean, he gets really flummoxed by whatever Medvedev is throwing at him. So how much of the next 3 sets was just Medvedev being unable to execute that game plan anymore because he just didn't have the legs? Obviously, he basically didn't have the legs from the get-go, and that's why he played like this in the first place. Or how much was actually just Yannick sort of settling into the match and eventually actually coming out on top as well mentally? Because well, the last 3 sets, I would say that he did very well to like stop himself from overhitting, stop himself from going for the lines, which was basically something that I guess he was doing very well the entire fortnight. That he sort of didn't really take that much unnecessary risk. Like he wasn't peeking out of his mind. He wasn't just painting a line after line. He was actually sort of playing at a level and at a, let's say, approach that was very sustainable for him. And I guess when the opponent was really tired later on, when Medvedev was, it says 4 and 5, basically stopped giving him as much pressure on serve, maybe as well, because a few kilometers an hour, let's say, were lost there as well. That was sort of the approach that he had to come up with, and I guess it's still a pretty good mental effort to actually being able to pull this off while having no margin for error, because like still he was 0-2 down in a Grand Slam final, like, regardless of how tired Medvedev was, and regardless of how the match sort of went from there. I think after the first 2 sets to be sort of so confused at first and then slowly work his way into the match, it's still a big mental achievement, right?
Yeah, I honestly, about the pressure, I think maybe it wasn't even feeling that much in really the first, two games, but after it got broken and Medvedev was playing so well, and then it became difficult to, also to handle the aggression that Daniil was putting in. And so maybe after the first 2 3 games after the break, he started feeling the pressure of needing to try something to escape from the aggression from Medvedev, and he wasn't really able to do it. But honestly, yes, and I also give a lot of importance of the couple of games he won in the second set after falling down 1-5. He got one break, and he also had an opportunity to get even the second break when Medvedev was serving for the setup 5-3. So it was at the beginning more or less a horror set, down 1-5, and Medvedev serving for easily going to love up, and then he still went to love up, but after still having to suffer and to conquer that second set. And that, in my opinion, has been important. Also, Sinner has tried, mm, also feeling a little bit this fact that Medvedev was should have been tired as the match would go on. And for example, he's starting staying not much closer to the baseline on the second serve because it was a tactic that it wasn't playing. It wasn't playing well. And so, yeah, I feel like starting from that 1-5 point on the second set, um, he started finding his groove, and he started believing that things could have gone well. And also that third set, in when he's been able, even for example, to get out of that game at 4-all when he went to deuce. Yeah, then basically after winning the third set, then it's been a very very good match in the last couple of sets, also exploiting all of Medvedev tiredness by also, as you were mentioning, the that aggression, but without maybe risking that much, so avoiding to to give some too many free points. So yeah, it's been, I would say, a mature performance overall, especially after he fell off 2 sets to love down. Despite Medvedev's tiredness, it still took a lot of mental effort to stay in it, of course.
Yeah, and I guess, right now, I mean, this was the first time of the year, obviously January. So we kind of have to talk about like expectations for the rest of the season. Where does Sinner go from here? And I think after the last 2 or 3 months of 2022 to 2023, now we have a serious argument that, like, since puking into that amazing bean, Yannick Sinner has basically been the best player in the world. And I guess that there's no real way to even speak against a trend like this. I mean, he is 3-1 in the head-to-head against Djokovic since, and he's won the biggest title since. So basically, yeah, I guess that's the reality that we live in right now. So yeah, what are we expecting from him next? And how much of a well, no, it's not going to be a flash in the pan. I'm just sort of asking, yeah, what are your expectations for Sinner now are to be just straight up on top of the sport alongside Djokovic, maybe alongside Alcaraz as well, or is this a bit more accidental than maybe it seems? Whatever your opinion is.
Well, I think that I think he demonstrated that he has also the mentality, and I'm not talking, especially on the court, but also off the court with his work ethic, his being focused in what he needs to improve, even how he talked after winning the slam. I feel like he should have what it takes to still be at the top. I don't know. I feel like, of course, um, you know. Of course, it will be difficult to repeat, for example, the slam victory this year already, for example. So I'm expecting him to stay competitive and to keep winning. Of course, he cannot keep going winning, 10 out of 11 matches against the top five opposition, because nobody has done this throughout his whole career in the history. But still having some big wins, and maybe winning also a master event this year. So adding with another important trophy, maybe also being, let's say that he did this on the hard courts, and maybe also getting a big win on another surface, something like that. I feel like he should have what it takes, considering the rest of the season, to stay up there. I feel like his goal right now, given also the ranking, should be, believing that at this point he can keep going. And I don't know how much higher he will go, but I feel like at this point he 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 can try to get higher, and to even maybe surpass for some weeks, if not for the whole seasons, some of his rivals who defend maybe also even more than him in the first half of the year. But I would say that probably a goal can also be, try to be as competitive as them also on the other surfaces, which maybe he still hasn't proven, if we have to still find something else to prove for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a pretty nice story of like hardworking progress because it's rare, and I think we talked about it when we were talking about the Coach of the Year nomination, for example, that it's very rare that we can see progress so like visibly in a player, and this rise kind of feels extremely earned. Like it's definitely not something that is just random and sort of someone has a 2 or 3 month period when they are peaking. This just really feels like this is his regular level. This is literally where he's, I don't want to say B game, but this is where his very good version is at the moment. Like it's still not, yeah, again, he's not peaking out of his mind. He's not finding the lines with all of his shots. So I do think this is very repeatable. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that if he doesn't win a slam from here this year, it's a fail. Definitely not. Anytime someone wins the Australian Open, the number one talk sort of pops up because obviously you have a
Yeah,
head start there. But again, there's not much pressure really on him to get it this year, or well, maybe in the future, maybe yes, but this year I don't think there's that much pressure on him to do it anyway. Yeah, maybe if he doesn't win like an ATP 1000 title from here, that would be a disappointing. Well, still not a disappointing season because if you win a slam, it's never a disappointing season. But I guess maybe if he didn't win an ATP 1000 from here, that would be a little surprising. That would be like a bit of a okay. I mean, we'll see how he handles himself by the Australian Open because then the points will drop. But yeah, I'm still expecting big stuff. He definitely has sort of established himself next to the other two best players for now. And yeah, maybe let's just move on to Daniel Medvedev, who, well, let's start with maybe this one thing. I'm very excited to see if that tournament sort of makes Medvedev play a little different overall as well. And for the record, I'm not saying that the guy should be, um, let's say, rushing as he was in the first 2 sets of the final, or maybe standing as close to the baseline as he was in the last 3 sets against Zverev all the time. I'm just saying it would be nice for him to have this as like a pretty permanent fixture in his game in terms of just being an option. Of course, not
yeah,
an every match. It's not something that he will want to do every match. There's definitely going to be opponents or specific situations in matches when he's sort of more natural feel for it is much better. I'm just saying that it would be cool for him to have this as something that he can sort of go for, something as a tool in his arsenal. And we remember some matches when basically he was trying to step into the baseline. He was trying to stand closer to the baseline in order to counteract the opponent who was, for example, like serve bowling against him
yeah,
so frequently and easily, like Alcaraz, like Djokovic at the U.S. Open final as well. But when he did that, he usually like wouldn't even get his racket on the ball. He would not be able to make clean contact. And here, Medvedev actually in a few matches was managing to pull this off. I don't know if this is something that he worked on during the off season, but I do hope that this run makes him a bit of a more complete player from now on. And I'm for example really excited to see his next match against Alcaraz and how he approaches that tactically.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I feel like this has been overall a good run, and even the final loss, it feels, good run, especially in the end. I mean, if we consider the first couple of matches, of course, he could have, suffered less. Also, physically spend maybe less time on the court, but given the situation that he found himself in after the first week. He overall did a very, very good second week. And this final loss feels, in my eyes, very different. And I think in everyone's eyes, very different from the one he suffered in 2022. Here, um, we kind of needed that he could have suffered at the long distance. So when he didn't really close, let's say in set three, or even when Sinner conceding that break point in the fourth set, and then Sinner himself saved it with an ace, so it wasn't really a big opportunity for Medvedev. But after that point, it kind of started feeling that there was not really chance anymore. Given also all the time he spent on the court and how things were starting to play out, so I'm considered this in a way a little bit less disappointing, even if of course nobody's happy to to lose a slam final, especially if you at some point you find yourself 2 sets to love up. But yeah, I definitely agree that he needed also to try to find something else, new things to offer on the court in some kind of matchups that can be for him really uncomfortable. For example, let's say that even a matchup against Sinner, even in the future, working on something different. But it's been you still kind of ask yourself if he did it because he was in physical trouble, even for example against Urkac when he was closer to the baseline even on return. But I feel like he really needs to add this kind of adjustment, and especially in big matches, even if not only because in this tournament he struggled more or less everywhere, but especially in big matches because um, yeah, he reached 6 finals of Grand Slam, so definitely his game is a game that pays, uh, but maybe can pay even more because in the end, even if often five times out of six facing Djokovic and Nadal, but still, um, maybe with something more, im- you know some improvements even technically in this, having more options can really help him to try to get this second slam that at this point, given in how many finals he's been, uh, it kind of feel it kind of feel fair, even if we don't know if it's going to happen. But still, maybe these tactic improvements can help him if he starts using these things a little bit more often, even considering who's his opponent or something like this. So yeah, I agree that we've seen some nice things.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I was just laughing at that sentence because he said that basically he struggled in every match or something like that. And of course, the guy actually made the finals and finished runner-up, which is pretty funny. But yeah, maybe in another reality, maybe in another slam run, he actually conserves more energy as well, and he manages to to have more left in the final, then maybe he doesn't come out and doesn't like fluster Sinner this match with the first two sets. So of course everything, like any minor change that we could have along the way to the final, it could influence the final as well. So obviously there's no real way to look at this like that. But yeah, 1-5 finals record and two matches in it blown from two sets to love up. I think the one against Nadal in at the Australian Open 2 years ago, of course, was definitely the one that's you can actually like find moments when Daniel was very close to winning it. You can find moments and sort of opportunities that you can blame him for. Here, given his physical state going into the
Yeah.
final, I do think that we can give him a pass for that. But that question that was on the screen just a second ago, that question in the poll, it actually is real, all right? I mean, at this stage, you kind of have to ask whether Medvedev will win another slam or not. There are some issues, like, for example, well, basically, just like his entire generation. So, Rublev, Zverev, Tsitsipas, he's been stuck in that sort of middle ground between the big three
Yeah,
and the next gen. And of course, the big three for a while. Right now, it's only Djokovic, really. I mean, maybe Nadal turns it on, and maybe also he's back in the race for slams at Roland Garros. But let's say for now, even it's just Djokovic. Obviously, Djokovic is the goat, and then also you've got these two, at least two, next gen players who basically have a stronger upside than all of these guys. Of course, they're still all sort of like learning their games, the tour, the experience. So it's not that obvious yet. But when you put these guys like Rublev, Zverev, Tsitsipas, or even Medvedev, who's obviously the closest to all of them, if you put them against Sinner and Alcaraz in a couple of years, for example, their chances only really decrease with every season. That's what it seems. So it is a real thing. Maybe the draw opens up for him or something, but here the draw I guess opened up.
yeah,
He didn't have to face Alcaraz or Sinner or Djokovic until the final, and he still spent 20 hours on court getting to that final, which
yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
did, if not ruin his chances in the final, it definitely changed the way that they both had to approach the matchup and change the dynamics of how this was going to be played out. So I mean, yeah, it is a real possibility. Maybe let's just ask for your take on whether Medvedev is guaranteed to win a slam from here or not. Because honestly, one more thing that I'll say is that if he only ends up at one slam, like will probably have a lot of moments to point out or a lot of maybe issues with his approach or his attitude in some of these matches to nitpick. But it wouldn't feel right. I mean, he's just way too good for only having one slam title.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There are some, worrying signs. For example, despite, all the tiredness that we may mention in the final against Sinner, but for sure, for example, this matchup has changed a lot over the course of the past 52 weeks. For example, 1 year ago, Medvedev, it was the kind of matchup for him in where he was just he just had to play his game to do what he was comfortable at, and he would have kept winning the rallies. And right now, even if we don't want to mention this Australian Open final, but we can go back in Turin, we can go back at the final in Vienna. It's not like Sinner just had to change his game completely. The Beijing final in the end has been just one moment, one match, and then we're kind of being back to, let's say, to the normality in this matchup, but things have still changed. um, yeah, I agree that a guy, especially on the hard courts, a guy who reaches six finals, and there are not many above him, in terms of how many finals, Grand Slam finals, they have reached on this surface, above across the Australian Open and the US Open. And for sure it would feel fair for him to get a second one. But for sure he has something to work on, because in the end, yeah, you're also right in mentioning that the draw hasn't been that harsh on him, but he still had to spend a lot. So from one side, we can in some way praise also the mental strength he had until also the semifinal and that second round, when at around 1 a.m. he was 2 sets to love down. And then he managed in some way to came back. Also, the way he snatched the fifth set against Turkac when he was not feeling well physically anymore. But in some way, there are also some some worrying signs, if you consider the big picture. Also, if we this was the first time Medvedev and Sinner were meeting at the Grand Slam, but if you think about this kind of matchup in a couple of years ago, for example, would have been Sinner to struggle more during the first week, to lose some energies, and then to and right now, Medvedev has to be more careful, even in this, to try to avoid all the the struggles he had in this couple of weeks, because then you can go to the final, and things can become very very uncomfortable if you have to face a player, a player like Yannick or Carlos, if we don't even want to mention Djokovic, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Matthew, that mostly the damage by Novak has already been done to Djokovic. Like, sorry, to Medvedev. Like the damage done to Medvedev by Djokovic has mostly already been done. It's like an issue that's going to be a non-issue in 2 years, maybe, or maybe even for earlier. I think probably later we're also going to talk about that. But what I'm trying to say is that, well, it's not going to be the expectation that he beats Sinner or Alcaraz because you say that he can beat them. And yeah, I mean, sure, he absolutely can. But anytime he plays Sinner or Alcaraz at a hardcore slam right now, he's not going to be a favorite. Like it's gonna be like at the U.S. Open last year, where you're like, okay, so Medvedev is a little too good to like be written off completely, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, he kind of is a pretty big underdog in this match.
Yeah, and
And
maybe you would have
mhm.
to beat them back to back, for example. You
That's the
know,
extreme. Yeah, that's the extreme possibility, which seems then very unrealistic. But even one win, like it's never going to be the expectation. So let's say that in order to get that done, he would have to secure, let's say, like 4 chances in order to get it done one more time, which isn't obvious. But then again, of course, he did reach 5 of the last 7 Grand Slam finals on hard courts, which is like pretty massive. I also would like to point out that whenever Medvedev can't do it, then we get all these random slam hardcore finalists, right?
yeah,
Because we get, and I'm counting Tsitsipas in this. I'm counting Tsitsipas in this. Because
mm,
Medvedev wasn't around, Tsitsipas was allowed to reach a Grand Slam
yeah,
final hard. Kasparov, of course, is a very different case, but I'm even counting Stefanos Tsitsipas in it, which is a little controversial. But anyway, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that it is a possibility if he keeps reaching like 5 more finals. Yeah, hopefully he takes one. I don't know if he will, but hopefully this consistency will remain with him. And also, the obviously Medvedev is not that old. I mean, we're sometimes talking about him as if he's like another Djokovic,
yeah,
right? It feels like he's been around forever, but obviously he still has a lot of time. There's still plenty of opportunity for Sinner, Alcaraz, maybe Runa if he joins them in the future, to just have a slam where all of them, fail, or maybe there's just one that you have to go through. And yeah, then of course Medvedev will be very much in the conversation. He's definitely the closest in terms of
yeah,
upside to these 2 guys or these 3 guys than the rest of his generation. But I think there's still one more player, and let's talk about him now. In fact, who is also very close, just in terms of like tennis quality. That player I'm thinking of is Alexander Zverev from that generation. But the main problem is that Alexander Zverev, I mean, he's kind of wasted a few chances already. And I mean, mentally, yeah, I mean, he's not really showing you that he's gonna get there. And we might, go on about the Medvedev improvements in the last 3 sets against Zverev, how he was serve botting. He definitely was. How he again stepped up into the court and played a very different version of his game. But still, I mean, all of this event, we saw Alexander Zverev struggling with mostly himself, frankly. Like,
yeah,
okay, Lucas Klein was playing some insane tennis in the second round. I don't know if he ever really like would be able to come up with something different there, just because he was on the back foot a lot. So okay, that's fine. But like against Cam Nori, of course, the 5th set where he like is so passive again and just hopes that Nori is gonna beat himself, which he kind of does in the 5th set tiebreak. Then of course we have that Alcaraz match, which basically until like 5-3 could have been, not disregarding how horrific Alcaraz was, it could have been like a straight up perfect Zverev performance, start to
yeah,
finish. He deserves a lot of credit for pulling through anyway in the 4th set. I think especially from 3-4 down, again starting to hit through his forehand, which of course he's not that confident in generally, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. But the problem is that, well, these issues still happened, and they were sort of course, maybe showing us that later on he might not be trustworthy in a spot like this, and he definitely wasn't in the semifinals. So I guess for him it's even more worrying right now because, well, it's really been a few major chances, and obviously 2 for the most part the final against team. But even here, I mean, he had such a wonderful opportunity to just close out Medvedev in about 3 sets,
Yeah.
or maybe even 4 sets, and be in much better physical shape for the final than Medvedev would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say that, despite Medvedev losing the final from 2 sets up, he gave us during this fortnight good signs mentally. Zverev, it's kind of the opposite, because you have the match he played against Alcaraz, which, yeah, we still can talk about the third set, but overall, it's been a very good performance overall. And so let's say that he gave us kind of a good answer from a tennis point of view, but he has to be, first of all, more consistent in producing that kind of tennis. And also, yeah, mentally, because a lot of time also this change in attitude on the court, from staying more aggressive and suddenly, becoming again super passive, he's definitely costing him, because also, with all the struggles he has with the forehand, and even more when he has time to think about hitting it, and when he goes for it, when he's brave enough to still try to strike with it, he still makes some mistakes, that's for sure, but he produces some very, very better things, with compared with when his approach is conservative. Yeah, it feels like really, really a wasted opportunity for him, because um, if we think about Medvedev, for example, already five slam finals before this tournament, and even if he loses the semifinal, you think about the US Open and you are like, again, okay, why not? For Zverev, I feel like, only one slam final. He's 26, which of course he has he has time ahead of him, that's for sure. But comparing also to what other players who were also promising, and even less, for example, Medvedev, if you go back to 5-6 years ago, he was not as promising as Zverev was, and in the end, he has not been able to go through that much at slam tournaments. Yeah, that final against him, which was of course a very, very big chance, that's for sure, to win one. But after that, probably this one has been, his biggest opportunity, if we, just cut off the French Open in 2022, which there was that close semi-final against Nadal, and we never know what would have happened if uh, otherwise. But yeah, definitely this feels like, the question mark about him, whether he's going to do it sooner or later, one day, he's definitely big. And yeah, tennis wise, he has what it takes. But when you mentally keeps wasting this opportunity, I start doubting, honestly. mm, for example, this one was one to take.
Yeah, I mean, this should have been a final, and again, I think that if he wins the semi pretty easily, he would actually have a better shot at Sinner than Medvedev would. Then again, yeah, you never know if you're gonna see him deliver, but sort of like all in all, I guess it's still a tiny positive this slam for Zverev. He had some moments of absolutely like peak tennis, peak version of himself. He probably wasted too much time, just like Medvedev in the first few rounds, to sort of maybe later on produce, let's say, maybe in the final he's 120%. But then again, for a large chunk of that Medvedev match, he was actually still fine physically, and maybe even until the very end. Honestly, he more
Yeah.
so lost it mentally than physically for sure. And yeah, there is definitely that worrying thing for him about that inability to step up in the crucial moments, and how he just tends to, yeah, crawl back into his shell. And despite there being like no technical error flaws really in his forehand, it's just something that he's never really believed in for whatever reason. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Because I
overcoming
feel
that
also
in a big
like,
match.
Also tennis wise, if I go ahead and think, for example, at the French Open, where Sinner and Medvedev maybe won't be as good as
Hmm.
as at the Australian Open of US Open, and maybe I don't know. So Zverev has been there in the semis for 4 straight years, but then still I doubt him mentally. So potentially, for example, French Open is always a big opportunity for him, given that he's very solid on clay and the competition is maybe not as strong. Talking about how many players are legit contenders there. But then, I still really doubt him. Last year was not really. Maybe he wasn't clearly ready. Even if still it was, pretty disappointing that semifinal. But overall, right now I'm even if I don't doubt him to go far, then I still doubt him to, to get those couple of final wins, last wins that he needs in those big matches, especially because even if he has the opportunity, goes ahead, it still leaves you that same sense of uncertainty. So yeah, there are some tiny positive, but the picture is not really, it's not feeling really good for me, because then you get at some point that you have an opportunity and you kind of need to take it.
Yeah, and I do think that he will be looking at the French Open as a big opportunity for him, as you said. Unless we suddenly get peaking Nadal, it is an open-ish sum for now. That's how it
Mm,
seems. Of course, we'll see what happens in all the lead-ups. There's still so many months ahead of it, but it is an open-ish slam, and yeah, for him especially, this might be, the door is closing on him a little bit, and of course, something that Medvedev has compared to the rest of his peers is that slam title, and that's something that really changes the perspective here. Like the pressure of winning your first against the pressure of winning your second is a little different for sure. And even if he doesn't win that second one, which, as we said, for Medvedev wouldn't really feel right, he still has won. He still is in the history books or something. But yeah, Zverev doesn't really make you feel that he was gonna deliver in the final, even if theoretically, yeah, it seems like that sort of just strictly on quality, he is not really far behind Medvedev and the other guys. But he definitely is in terms of actually delivering and stepping up when it comes to the crunch. And yeah, let's also talk about Novak Djokovic, of course. I don't know if this is a moment to have a washed or not conversation yet. Probably not, especially given that the guy won three of the last five slams. But I mean, it was a bit of a weird event for Djokovic for sure. The early struggles with the virus, which of course maybe influenced him later on, who knows. But as a whole, I guess his takeaway, and that's probably what our takeaway should be as well, is that in the semifinal he had a pretty horrific showing in the first two sets. It was that
yeah,
Zverev Alcaraz match reverse, and it
yeah,
was really one of the weakest performances that Djokovic put in at a slam recently. I mean, I don't know what the reason for that was. I also don't want to take any credit away from Yannick because, again, like he was just exactly as good and doing exactly what he needed to do on that in that matchup on the day. Again, not sustaining his aggression, not really going for broke, and that was perfect. But certainly for Djokovic, that was a very disappointing performance. Now it takes away the pressure of the calendar. No, I'm joking, of course, but I guess this is like just an opportunity for him to maybe focus on the goals that he'll find most important this year, which is of course still adding this to the slam count. But I would assume the Olympics, like it might make them even more important right now, because he's not going to be in that position as he was in 2021 when he
yeah,
enters the Olympics and he with three slams won and he has to win the next two events. He clearly falters a little bit because of that. So I guess this is also maybe a little bit freeing to Novak. I don't know. I mean, I just don't think like I saw some people thinking that like he just basically is going too deep from now on, but I just don't think we have enough evidence to suggest that. Given that 2 months ago this guy was winning the ATP finals, outplaying the
yeah,
two best youngsters of the new generation like easily, and also of course, yeah, 3 of the last 5 slams. I mean, they still went to him. So if there's going to be that dip, or there's going to be that decline already, I think I still have to see more of that in order to be convinced about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have at least, to have, a couple of straight majors with, this happening. Even if maybe I would even, wait. Yeah, for sure. Between French Open, Wimbledon, the Olympics, we are going to have these answers. So for sure, I don't think that it's right to you know to say really much more than just that. For sure, the performance has been mm, bad, has it's been overall a weird event. Um, Never really playing amazing matches. Yeah, that's been, of course, that.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't
he played
get
well.
capacious with that. Like people sometimes say, and Djokovic fans tend to like just go on Twitter right now and say,
No, no, no,
okay,
no, 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 no,
off
no,
the
no.
entire event.
For
But like
example,
Echeverry, for example,
no, no, no. Those
Manarino,
matches.
Fritz.
No, no, no. Those matches were good, but um, uh, in my opinion, that was, maybe those couple of first matches stuck into your head when you also go ahead. I also feel that the Fritz match probably was really good. Even without facing those break points, because well, without converting these break points, because Fritz was playing really good on them. Overall it was, let's say, a little bit on ups and downs, also considering the final performance against Sinner. Of course, no credits to be taken away, because in the end Sinner beat him 3 times in the last 3 months of a couple of months of competition. So it's not like we can take away the merits or of beating Djokovic in Melbourne, but still it was a weird performance, especially, for example, I don't even say the first set, but especially the second set. You would expect him, a pretty bad first set, basically giving it away 6-1. You would expect him a fast reaction, in the second set, and it didn't happen. And that was very weird, that's for sure. Yeah, then basically saved himself in the serve, because Sinner got a bit tired, and also Djokovic with the serve in the end of the third set. Uh, but overall, it's been a bad performance, especially, for example, fourth set. He was playing a little bit better than the first couple of sets, but, for example, gets broken from 40 love up. So yeah, definitely, not a run for the ages, but I will still say that we have to see. Yeah, I agree that we have to see more, in my opinion, to really, take big conclusions from that. For sure, where that he hasn't really stepped up in on a big occasion at the Grand Slam semifinal. But I guess that as he approaches these late stages of his career, we can maybe see some ups and downs. Maybe he plays a great Wimbledon and wins it, and then maybe he's not able to do the same at the US Open. For me, it's still early to say he won't win any major again. Let's say like this.
Yeah, I see John is in the chat, probably trying to avoid having Ollie tennis as an authority there. But anyway, yeah. So with Djokovic, yeah, I just don't think that him making the non-first error in the basically every third rally in the first 2 sets, like this
Mm.
actually holds up statistically. That's something that I guess can happen to you. An argument that I've seen sort of as well floating around from Djokovic fans is that it's actually easier to take a loss like this when you play horribly, and than a loss when you are basically at the best version of yourself and you still lose because someone outplayed you. And honestly, maybe Cena would have won anyway. Who the hell knows? But we just don't have that knowledge. We never got a match there with
Yeah,
Djokovic because
thing
he
is
can.
that it's not like he played bad and still lost, let's say, 6-4 in the fifth. you know Maybe I would say more if it was. I would agree with that take if it was, a close five set or something like that. He was still so close to win, and yet he played, horribly. In the end, it was kind of fair and square as a loss. But yeah, I can also agree it's in some way. Maybe it's even more painful to see, yourself playing super well and losing anyway.
Yeah, and Sean says that Zverev to do it, he has to find a guy who's gonna bottle it more than himself. Well, that's not gonna be easy. Yeah, and as I said, this is gonna be like a sped up version of the ATP Weekly. So basically, we have like 5 minutes left to talk
Yeah.
about whatever relating to the Australian Open. Sean had a question earlier. Let's maybe talk about that. Is Fritz edging closer to a final
Mm.
run in Slam, or is he where he's always been?
I mean, it's been definitely, I think, his best slam run. Because Wimbledon in 2022 ended in a very bad way. Because that loss against Nadal was, mm, yeah, was bad in my eyes. And playing Djokovic at the U.S. Open, he was never close to even making it, a match. Um, so this time it was a great performance against Tsitsipas in the fourth round, and then backing up with very good first couple of sets against Djokovic, picking up those break points. He saved the first 15. Was definitely a good showing. Um, still, still, I don't know because even. Uh, yeah, even against Djokovic after the second set, then, for example, he's starting feeling a little bit. So I don't really know about a slam final. For sure, if he keeps up, maybe the draws open up, and somehow someday we're finding him in a final. But right now, for me, it's looking a little bit difficult, even if this has been, in my opinion, his best slam run so far.
There's a question about Dino Prismic as well in the chat. A little random, but why not? I do think that him like having a meteoric rise in the next couple of months, that's not happening. Like I think there's still a lot of real issues with his game for the moment, and especially in how he's going to be like just performing it from match to match, and maybe struggle to beat some worse opponents than him, or like even worse opponents than the guys that he's been able to push, like Novak. But
Yeah,
of course, yeah, this was maybe more so a good performance sort of for the future, for in terms of like his long term prospects and how with the right progress game wise, it's pretty clear that he has it mentally in him, and it's pretty clear that he has what it takes athletically, obviously, and then movement wise. But yeah, I think a meteoric rise from here, I don't think it's really going to happen. I think it's going to be a little slower than for a guy like Menchik, for example, which is more first and foremost a playstyle difference. Like it's nothing really that he can maybe avoid. Who else was there in like the quarterfinals or something? Oh, Hubert Hurkacz. Has the plan been done and been sort of fulfilled for the year? I mean, he got to number 8 already in the ATP
yeah.
rankings. He made a deep run at a hardcourt major. He made a deep run at a major. So he's like kind of done everything, right? Is the pressure off for the rest of the year?
Well, I know that you are also a bit kidding because, for example, a pressure may say, for example, this year that he's starting well, so why not? A goal should be, for example, a place in Turin as not an alternate.
Yeah,
mm, you know it was last year, but last year, there was, basically the good results came in the end, and so he was really late. This year started well with the quarterfinal at a major, so he should have this as a goal. I think like that.
no, you're right. ATP finals in Turin, that's probably a very nice goal. I mean, the guy has ended like what the last 3 seasons ranked number 9, basically.
Yeah.
So or maybe number 10, one of them. Anyway, the last 3 seasons in the top 10.
Yeah,
That's quite.
9, 10, 9.
Yeah, 9 and 9 because he was like 10 points behind Rune, right, in the 2022 season, I think. So yeah, basically, I think you're right that there's still that one thing, and that thing, of course, it's something that sort of goes on throughout the year, and you have to just keep picking up points for it. But as a whole, also a bit of a missed opportunity, right? We'll remember this for him as a bit of a missed opportunity for him because if you beat Medvedev there in the
Yeah,
fifth set, in the fourth set, I mean, sorry, no, he had that comeback in the fourth set, so in the fifth set, then you have Zverev in the semis, and
yeah,
suddenly, what
absolutely.
becomes like a real threat to win the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then if you have to face him in the final, well, it's definitely tough. So I agree. It feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity, even if of course overall it's a positive run, that's for sure. But still, yeah, you have this kind of you have this kind of feeling a little bit. But yeah, overall, let's say for sure a positive slam run considering he's a first Grand Slam quarterfinal on hard courts. So pretty weird for a guy like him, but yeah. So let's say positive, and hopefully there will be a little bit more consistency in the future in slams. And then I don't know if we want to close with last guys in the quarterfinals, even if
I think
Rublev,
especially
I don't
Alcaraz,
know.
we
Yeah,
could
because
dedicate 2 minutes to Alcaraz. Yeah.
I don't think Rublev there's much to say about. Um,
Mm, I guess with Rublev we've covered it really. Like we've covered
yeah,
the 10
exactly.
quarterfinals time and time again. Again, it wasn't really his fault that he lost. Like again, it's an opponent who basically seems kind of unwinnable for him at the moment already.
Yeah, that's
However, of
why
course, 5-1 that was like the main moment, right? When
I feel
Sinner
like
hits that
it's
shot
always
and
if the draw opens up.
yeah.
I feel this is the only, the main discourse about him, especially in majors, which is different from best of three, when maybe your opponent has a bad day and you can just
And he's been
rack a win.
unlucky to have
Yeah,
10 Grand Slam quarterfinals and no opponent that's like, I don't want to say just rolls over for you, but no opponent which is like, yeah, I kind of have to beat this guy because even when the two
yeah,
players like Thiago or Cilic were there, they still peaked on the day or at that
yes,
event.
exactly,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he has been a bit unlucky. And I guess, yeah, the final 2 minutes, let's just dedicate them to Carlos Alcaraz, then, who, of course, made the quarters here, had a phenomenal peak performance against Miomir Kecmanovic. And then, yeah, Novak Djokovic, Yannick Sinner type of story with a horrific couple of sets. He comes back into it. He poses some questions for sure to Zverev, loses in the end. But yeah, I guess not that much to worry about after all when it comes to Alcaraz.
No, no. I mean, for sure, he has to, let's say, maybe avoid this kind of starts, especially in these matches. But it's pretty obvious to say. Yeah, in the end, when we are talking about a guy like him, it's difficult to really find big negatives. Maybe he still can be a little more consistent mentally, but overall, yeah, I would say that in in the end, it's still the same guy that beat Djokovic at Wimbledon and peaked Djokovic more or less at Wimbledon. So yeah, let's see at least how the season is playing out. Come on, let's say like this.
Yeah, yeah. It was a very 20-year-old performance, but
Yeah.
well, he is 20 years old, so at least it wasn't a 20-year-old performance from a 30-year-old guy. But yeah, we're gonna, as we said earlier, we're just gonna give way to the WTA Weekly crew right now. I think it's Nick and Miles, and also, guys, let's just see it in the chat. Nurlan with a bold prediction: Rublev is winning Roland Garros. I'm gonna go bet my house on it right now. So perhaps by the time we're talking about Paris, I'm maybe gonna live on the street. Who knows? Otherwise,
Or maybe
I'm
you
gonna
will
come to
have 10 houses.
maybe I will have 10 houses, or maybe I will come to Turkey and live with Nurlan because he's gonna put me into that mess. But anyway, screenshot it, and we're gonna see what happens come on Garas. But anyway, yeah, thank you guys. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties, but we still got a 55-minute show in, and yeah, make sure to tune into the WT Weekly, where the guys will be basically discussing the WT version of what we just did. So,
Yeah,
the aftermath of the Australian Open. Thank you.
thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tech.